Well, good evening, Facebook and YouTube and everybody who's out there tonight. So the first thing I'm going to do is take off this headset because it runs about a millisecond behind. It's really confusing for me to listen. The only reason I had it on in the first place was so I could just blend the music in and out. So good evening. Hope you guys had a great week at work. Hope you're prepared for Monday. Monday morning. They wrote a song about that, I think. So what's on your mind tonight? I'll be monitoring myself here in the studio. I can still hear myself. My wife says I'm too loud. Imagine that. Anyways, as we prepared tonight to just go online and chat with you guys a little bit, I gave you a little half-hour notice for a change. And I'm still getting a little more familiar with the YouTube live stream versus the Facebook live stream. They run about 15 to 20 seconds behind, so it's much easier for me to watch myself in the studio because this is live right now. But when I switch back to YouTube to see what everybody's got going on tonight, I can still read your comments, but it's like 20 seconds behind. So it's kind of a time lapse I'm in here. So we're here in Erie, Pennsylvania, and this is a little offshoot of Working Hands Radio. And as I'm still kind of building that following and that brand versus the Tool and Die Guy, this is a great way for me to do it. Get you guys a little bit more involved with a little bit more warning than just I'm live. So I am live tonight, and a couple things to chat about tonight. One of the things, as you guys know, if you follow the Tool and Die Guy at all, I'm just going to quickly check on YouTube quickly here. Hey guys, if you do check in, audio's low. Audio's low. Okay, thank you for that. Let's see what's going on with that. Let's see. Audio input. Let me check here. Can I turn that up a little bit? Interesting. Maybe I just need to get more into the mic. Hopefully that helps, because it's pegged out here, I think. Yeah, that's it. That's my audio. Let me turn up the output a little bit. So that's about as far as I think I can go with it. So thanks for that. Let me know if it got better, though. So as you check in on YouTube and you're coming in to listen to the program tonight, I appreciate your comments. That's what makes this thing go. But I also appreciate where you're from. It's always fun. That's the beauty of the internet, to find out where people are listening from. It's not like I'm going to target you on marketing or anything. It's just fun. It's okay to have a little fun once in a while. So because I used to own my own shops a long time ago now, I think I closed my last one 14 years ago. And, I kind of knew a lot of the suppliers in town, and, my head was in the game, right? You talk to the delivery guys and, hey, what's going on out there? How busy is this shop? How busy is this shop? How busy are you? Because if the supply companies are busy, that means things are going well, right? So again, I want to kind of swallow this mic. Again, let me know if this is still an issue with the sound. Very low volume. Boy, I just don't get that. Don't get it. This is a very expensive set here. I'm going to turn the output up to full blast. That's full blast. So try that. How's that? That should be, I hope, a lot louder. What's it look like in my studio? Yeah, it seems to have moved up quite a bit. It's starting to peg into the red. So can you hear me now? All right, but thanks for that input. So again, sound off. I'd love to know where you guys are from. But back to my story before I was interrupted, rightly so. If you can't hear me, what's the point, right? So I used to, again, keep my tabs on the trade by talking to guys who were delivering steel. How's the steel mill doing? You guys selling a lot of steel. And then, if you weren't busy, you were wondering why somebody else was. I did a lot of work. I don't have to protect any names here. I would never give out personal names of customers or anything. But, one of my biggest customers that I made my bread and butter on for many years was the Little Tykes Toys Company. And, working on toys was just a lot of fun. And I built injection molds for them, of course. And, the work was, it was nice. It was more aesthetic than precision, let's face it. Nobody's really going to care if the head of a toy horse is 10 thousandths out of diameter or something. You get it, right? As long as the wall thickness was correct and the part didn't weigh too much. As long as the part fit together, it was good to go, right? So toy work was a lot of fun. Building toys is fun. and they were a really a good company to work with. I really enjoyed working with Little Tikes. So what ended up happening there was the way it worked then, which I loved. At Little Tikes, the molds, when you bid on a mold, it was sent to you by engineers. There were 2 or 3 engineers there, but one time there was like 7. And what they would do is send you a part drawing, just a part drawing, and say, hey, listen, we want a 2 cavity of this part. And then you'd kind of sketch it out on your desk, literally, and get an idea of the mold base size. And then once you knew that, you knew about the cost of the mold base. And then you'd have to figure out what the cavities and cores were going to cost. Well, really, in real life, a precision mold for a toy boat hull, if it was a precision mold, it might be a $65,000 mold. And but I would build a 2 cavity of that for $35,000 all day. It was real close to half price. Well, anyways, it was really good. The engineers worked with us. If I was a little high, they'd let me know because they knew it was a good fit for my shop, and they would make sure I got the job. But I might have to give them a little concession. But they were really, really good to work with. Well, at the end, they gleefully, they were so thrilled that they could send this stuff to China. So, in my opinion, because I'm like a lot of guys, I always thought NAFTA was the deal, right? NAFTA did us in because that's a real easy thing to blame. I really believe, for me as a tool maker, mold making shop, it was the World Trade Organization. And once they opened up China to the markets, none of my work went to Mexico. I can tell you that. All my mold work went to China and the Pacific Rim. And the writing was on the wall, right? So I already kind of explained to you I was working cheaper, just as a result of being in the toy industry. So let's say I was building a $30,000 mold that anybody else would charge, $55 or $60 for, but that was the toy industry. Well, now that $30,000 mold they want it done for $4,000 or $5,000, and the design would usually cost me about $2,500, and the steel would be about $3,000. So I'm losing before I even take the job, right? So that was the end for me. I didn't have a deep enough customer base, and I wasn't in business long enough to have the reserves to kind of figure everything out again. And I wasn't the only one, and I'm sure you guys know, wherever you live, Erie, Pennsylvania, is not by itself. But, everybody thinks they're the tool capital of the world, but Erie, Pennsylvania was pretty good. We started in plastics very early in the 50s, and Mark's Toys. And if you Google Mark's Toys, any place on eBay, their toys are still incredibly collectible and popular. They built a lot of stuff here in Erie. They built everything in here in Erie. All the parts were built. They were crazy. They did everything themselves. And nothing got farmed out of the country for, the love of God. That just didn't happen. So now we fast forward here, and that was just my story. I know people who were in the medical industry lost all their business, the Asian rim. So it's not just because I was in the toy industry I lost it. I might have come first because that was maybe easier to replace. It wasn't precision work, right? And but the precise work is leaving too. So that's that. So one of the things, let me just check back on Facebook or YouTube. How we doing, guys? Let's see here. Bay Area, California. I'm going to be heading your way this summer. Coming out to see Wente Vineyards. Did you cut your own material? Have it cut. Okay, Augusta, Maine. Been to Portland, Maine several times. Love it. NAFTA was the prototype for the World Trade Organization. You might be right with that. Excellent. Good comments. Let's see. Much better. Okay, everybody likes the audio. Thanks for that input. Let's see here. One channel sound. That's interesting. Let's see here. Did I cut my own material? Well, you know what? I'm going to get back to your question in just a second. Hang on. So let me just finish my monologue. Okay. So anyways, I don't read the want ads. I just never do. And I'm not looking for a job. I'm not nosy. So I don't care. So historically, the Sunday paper in our town, I'm sure it's the same in your town, we get the classifieds, so that's the biggest week. If you're going to shop, that's when you really want to run your ad, is on Saturday and Sunday. And our newspaper here has suffered, just like most of them have. And our newspaper kind of looks like, remember, if you guys are my age, the Weekly Reader we used to get in grade school. It's getting thin. So anyways, the first 6 pages were in one section was all the car dealers. And now we get to the jobs, and I think the jobs.com, all right? There we go. And this is really thin, and it's 6 pages from front to back. And you can see the first page here is about 4 giant ads, medical stuff. And then the second 2 pages of ads are about 10 ads maybe, and they're bigger. And there's a few manufacturer jobs here. Somebody's looking for an estimator, a manufacturer industrial maintenance technician, and a purchasing manager. But where I used to look, back to my thing, when I talked to, like, you know, the girl that comes at the place I work now to fill in the screw bins, because we have like a little contract with him as we start to run out of screws and stuff. She just comes in once a month or so and just replenishes them. Well, I used to buy a lot of stuff from her when I had my shop, and I always ask her, you know, what's going on out there, you know, and she's pretty honest about it, but she doesn't want to trash anybody either. But you know, I'm sure her business is kind of just hanging in there. But what I really get a kick out of is when I run into people that aren't in manufacturing, but they're on the periphery of manufacturing, like the Manufacturers Association. Don't get me started. And they say, you know, it's coming back. Well, let's take a look at that. Because if it's coming back, you need people to fill the jobs, right? So if I go to page 4, and there's a section called technical skills, and that's normally where you'd find machinists and tool and die makers. And there's a total of, I think, 6 jobs, 1 for a skilled construction worker, 1 for a fleet mechanic, 1 for a service technician, and 1 for a sewer and drain plumber. So there's 5 jobs, technical skills. So if it's coming back, the robots must be doing it. The robots are doing the work. So, you know, one of the purposes of the program I started on Tuesday nights, Working Hands Radio, was to chat about that. You know, I never wanted to be the old guy here lamenting about the good old days, right? Oh, it was so great. Well, it was great, and I love talking about that. And everybody wants to chat about that. I'm open to it. You know, I could tell you so many stories about what I learned as a tool maker in the late 1970s going into the 80s, because I had to learn all that old stuff. You know, I had to, there were no programs. You wanted to cut a mold, you dug it out of the steel. And if you needed a 5-degree angle on the wall, you either got a long 5-degree cutter, tipped the head on the machine. If the head didn't tip, you had to tilt the whole block up on 5 degrees. And then you need to know how to measure that stuff. So you had to be really good at what you did. And so when I got into the CNC end of it, about in the late 80s, I always said it was like cheating. It was so much simpler. Now, you know, when you look at a cavity and core of a mold, you bring it in 3D and just put a tool path on it, the drafts, the radius, it's all done. I don't know if you can even really need a tapered cutter anymore. I get you do, but not like you used to. That we lived off those things. So I get questions all the time because of me being online and stuff I do in town and things. You know, what would you do if you had a son or a daughter that wanted to get into manufacturing? Well, that's a great question. And my go-to statement is always, you know, there's always room for talented craftsmen. Knock on wood. I'm 58, and I've never been laid off one time in my life. I take my job very seriously, and I try to be a big asset to my company. And am I the world's greatest tool maker? Absolutely not. Do I screw stuff up? Yes, I do. But it's not always about how you screw stuff up. It's how fast you recover from it and get the solution in place, right? So should you get into manufacturing? Well, you better get into it with an eye towards technology, right? The days of 20 Bridgeports lined up and guys in white aprons, you know, with optoloops on, depth miking into a ball on a 5-degree angle, those days are long gone. I mean, those days were great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm the only person in a shop of 150 people that even knows what a ball dimension is, let alone how to calculate and measure to one, right? So, you know, and every once in a while, I get a situation where I have to do a few production parts on an angle. I need a hole, and I know how to tip the part up and pick up on a ball and move it over to the right dimension. Now I have AutoCAD, cheating again, right? God, I had to go through my trig book and try and teach somebody the other day. I felt like a fool because I don't use my trig book anymore. But I was lucky. I got to see both sides of the technology. So my advice is, if you really want to get into manufacturing and you're a young kid, I would say a minimum. You know, I love apprenticeships, and I'm sure they're not quite the same as they used to be. I'm an apprenticeship supervisor at the shop I'm at, and they're not the same as they used to be. I know that. But I like to see the kids go through the Bridgeport area and the surface grinder area and learn the manual stuff before they even touch a CNC machine. But my apprentice wants to know what he should do next. I said, you got to embrace the technology. And if they won't pay for it, you got to figure it out. You've got to go learn how to use Mastercam or EdgeCam or one of the cam systems so you can bring in models and program, because poking in numbers anymore, I run a Mazak. It's conversational. But, I've got 72 holes to drill in a block, and I'm sitting there doing this. I mean, if I miss one number, the part's scrap, right? So that doesn't happen with a cam system. So that's what you have to do. You have to embrace that system, learn the new stuff, but the old stuff. That's some of the old stuff, at least. Everybody should learn what a drill feels like going through a piece of material, right? So moving forward here, I'm going to I'm open to your questions now. That's the end of my monologue. That's my rant. Embrace the technology. So what's going on? All right, here, Bill from Southern MD. I think that's Maryland. I don't think new jobs are being advertised in newspapers anymore. Everything is online for job offerings. That's a good point, and I was thinking kind of the same thing. And that would be some research for me to do, because goeriejobs.com, I could go take a look at that and see what's on there, and maybe there's a lot more tool-making jobs. I highly doubt it, but not to say you're wrong. They might be online. Are you going to see Tom Lipton when you're in the Bay Area? I'm also getting mono sound on the headphones. I'll check into the mono sound, okay? I know this microphone produces stereo because when I tested it today, it does come in both sets. However, when I do put my headset on now while I'm broadcasting, I hear it in one side. So bear with me. I'll see what I can do about that. I'm not sure what the deal is. I do not want to switch microphones now because the system I'm using goes nuts when you change anything in the middle of it, okay? Craigslist. Agree with Terry. Manufacturers rarely use the paper anymore out here. Okay. All right. That's a good point. I'll check that out. Another thing I can do is ask the people at work where they're advertising for help. It'd be interesting. Am I going to see Tom Lipton while I'm in the Bay Area? That's a great point. I've been to Southern California a lot. I met my wife there, and spent a lot of time in Los Angeles area, and I love LA. It's a lot of fun. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful place. Couldn't live there just because of the traffic, but yeah, I think Tom Lipton's right around that area, and Tom and I have become friends over the last few years, and he'd be more than thrilled, I'm sure, to give me a tour out there, and I would love it. I would love to meet Tom personally. That laboratory he has at his house looks crazy. Let's see here. Oh, the San Quentin locksmith is back again. The guy from San Quentin. Oh, you'll always be known as that. Augusta, Maine. Let's see here. All right. Did you cut your own material? Have a cut? Great question. When my material was ordered, depending on what I was ordering, but let's say for injection mold, I would normally, if I was going to build the mold out of a solid plate, no inserts, well, of course, that just comes in a big giant block of steel, and we'd have to square that up in the mill. But what if I had a bunch of inserts that I needed that were pretty big, right? 3 inches thick by 8 by 8. I would normally have those cut. I would have them, leave a 16th on the side for us to square them up. But that's how I would do it. Now, with the benefit of things I've learned as a machinist versus a tool and die maker, I would also make sure they were at least an eighth of an inch thick. And what I would do now, which I think would save so much time, I would grab onto that last eighth of an inch and walk right around them with a nice carbide end mill, and then finish it with a brand new carbide end mill. You can get those things almost as square as you can get them with a grinder now, right? So now you've got an 8 by 8 squared block all at once. Just walk right around it with a CNC machine, then conventional mill it with a brand new 1-inch end mill. You're done. Flop it over, mill off the stock, and there's your block, right? So that's the way I would do it now. That's a good question, because I was thinking a lot about that as I was still kind of plodding along with the mold making class idea. It's just such an impossible class for me to try and get the prints over the drawing board correctly and zoom in right, explain what I'm talking about. But the better question for me would have been the mold bases. And did I build my own mold bases or just buy them built? You know, that was always a tough question because you pay more to get a mold base built, but when it comes in, it's done and it looks great, right? So the way I made that decision was based on how busy I was, and if I just didn't have the time to plow the mold bases through the shop, I almost kind of had to buy them. Even though you do pay more, they are done, and it does help with your time flow. However, building them yourself, even if it costs the same, it's better for your cash flow, right? Because let's say each person, if the DME company's charging $5,500 for a mold base, and you can build it for $5,000, you're going to save $500. Yay! You might be late on the job because you didn't have time to build it, so you pay the extra $500. Well, guess what? When the job's done, or even before the job's done, you've ordered this mold base. They want their money. That $5,000. You haven't even got your 2/3 back from the company. So if you build it yourself, it's a cash flow thing, right? Because you pay for the 2 chunks of steel, which might cost you $1,500, and then they put the couple hundred hours of labor into it there a week at a time. So it's coming out of your bank account like in installments. So you kind of cover yourself. So didn't like to pay for mold bases, but sometimes I had to. That's just the way it went. And I think a lot of it depends on how busy you are. What's going on here? Louisiana's on board. Are molds universal, or do you have to make molds to the specific machine that the company uses? Molds are universal. The only thing that changes occasionally, very occasionally, is the knockout pattern for the ejector system. But any injection mold, at least the way I was doing this, which wasn't that long ago, they're universal. I mean, they're different sizes, of course, but they're all built to fit on presses with a universal knockout pattern that'll move the ejector stakes forward. So no, you do not have to build, to the best of my knowledge, unless there's a press out there I never worked with, and there could be. I've never heard of having to alter a mold base to actually what's what I want to use, not confirm, but to fit, a specific mold press. Never had to do that. So good question. What else we have here? Anything else, you guys? Let's see. It's we're about 25 minutes into this. I was hoping to get a half an hour out of this. All right. So the sound's better. We learned that lesson. I'll see what's going on with the stereo, you guys. This is the first time I've really tried to give you guys a little heads up and let you know what's going on here. So I appreciate that. So quickly, I would like to bring you up to date on a few things. I don't know how much you guys catch of me. I've been jumping off and on a lot on YouTube, testing this system and everything. And I finally got this studio set up in the basement. I've been down here for a long time, but it's so quiet down here. That's the nice part, right? And I've got a big drawing board that you can't see over here, and then that's my dad's toolbox behind me. See that everything's opposite here. Back there in beautiful Gerstner from the 1940s. So this was what I've been trying to set up and get the lighting decent. You wouldn't believe how weird it is to get the lighting decent. All right. And I actually have a couple of umbrella lights here that I've had for other work I do for the Tool and Die Guy. So I've got them positioned finally so they kind of look right. So we'll figure out the stereo system, and I apologize for that. But the reason, again, I know I jump on here because I'm doing a lot of little tests and everything. And, after these 300 or so videos I've done at the Tool and Die Guy, that's a lot of work. And Tom Lipton will tell you it's a lot of work. But he's done a lot of videos too, and I get that. My biggest thing was not hearing from you guys. And as Tom would tell you, between his full-time job and trying to find the time to not only record and edit the videos and post the videos, not much time left to deal with your comments and questions. So I love this trade. This trade has been extremely good to my family for over 100 years. And my grandfather was a pattern maker, a forerunner to the tool makers, back in the early 1900s here in Erie. And he trained his 3 sons, the trade. And then Then my father was the general manager at my uncle's shop, and then everybody just died in 1969. You know, my uncle died, my dad died, and I was 9, and I decided I really missed being around a shop. So at 19, after 1 year of college, I went in my apprenticeship. So the trade's been good to my family. You know, I always like to say my grandfather was a toolmaker, my father was a toolmaker, my brother was a toolmaker, I'm a toolmaker. I have 4 sons, and none of them are toolmakers, and that's okay. You know, it's a little sad, but I'd rather have them not be right now until things get turned around, right? But this communication is halfway there. What we're doing tonight is a lot of fun, and I really appreciate it. And let me just see if I'm missing any more comments. Have you started learning Fusion 360 from Autodesk yet? Integrated in CAD and CAM? No, I have not. Um, yeah, my current shop uses all Hasco, big buck stuff. If you're using Hasco, at least it used to be, and all standardized. Yep, they fit on any press. You're exactly right. Most of the time, custom. Grants Pass, Oregon. Welcome, Robert. So, anyways, what we're doing here tonight is half the equation. I can at least now get your comments involved, and that's pretty cool. But what I really miss is the interaction, your voice. And there's a couple ways I could have done that. There's some software called Zoom, but it wants to see your face too. And I know you guys don't want to, and video sets up a whole other problem too. Now I've got 30 guys or something online, and that bandwidth, it's a disaster. You don't, video conferencing is fine for 2 or 3 people. So the radio program, excuse me, Working Hands Radio, I'm going to have to do the Marco Rubio here. How did he do it? It was pretty panicky, right? The radio program, Working Hands Radio, well, it took me about 2 years to put together. And we broadcast that right from downtown Erie here. And that was, took, again, 2 years because they couldn't figure out how to stream a real radio broadcast. And what you get with a real radio broadcast is pristine sound. This stuff you're having tonight with the audio, you don't have that on Tuesday nights. If you tune in at the same time at 7 o'clock, you won't get that. The other thing with the radio program, and you use a real radio station, is that the call-ins. And you can call in from anywhere. Right? Tom Lipton did call in from California, so that proves the point, right? And the recordings are perfect. So I pay money for that program to rent that station an hour a week to get this going. That's how much I believe in this trade, all right? So with the help of some sponsors, we put some stuff together. It's an ongoing process. It's a lot more expensive than people think it is, but the first 4 programs have been really good and technically perfect. Very happy with it. First, we had a little issue with the Wi-Fi, so we knocked the Wi-Fi out. We go right through a LAN cord now. So the production quality has been excellent, and I can hear from you guys now. This is halfway there because I can read your comments, but there's nothing like hearing your voice, okay? So this coming Tuesday night at 7 p.m., I hate to call a program Life After Manufacturing, but you take a look at a town like Erie, downtown Erie. Now, we broadcast every Tuesday night from the Boston Store building, and the Boston Store used to be the bomb. Back in the day in downtown Erie, as a child, I remember the toy store, right? The toy floor. I think it was the 6th floor. The whole floor was a toy store. Wooden floors. That's the place to see Santa Claus, man. It was like the Christmas story. Amazing. Well, you know, over the years, the downtown got the hell knocked out of it by the malls, right? And then all the manufacturing. And downtown Erie's been lucky. We've had some hospitals and a big insurance company hang around, that's for sure. That's invested a lot of money. But we broadcast from what's now called Boston Store Place. It's the same building, but the whole downstairs of the Boston Store Place are 7 radio studios. And I believe that's 5 FMs, country rock, you know, easy listening, oldies, and then 2 AMs, a sports channel, and the one I'm on, 1400 AM, which is Erie's flagship talk show. So we are the only AM program in Erie, Pennsylvania that broadcasts around the world. Pretty cool. And I hate to tell you, I had to figure it out. They just, I don't know if they just didn't want to or whatever, but that's what we do every Tuesday night. So the purpose of Working Hands Radio was so that I could talk to you guys now. Again, this is interesting, going back and forth and reading the comments, but there's nothing like, go ahead, caller, you're on the phone, what's on your mind? And you say, hey, this is Joe from California, and what do you think of this? What do you know? I have an opinion on this. I firmly believe that what I'm trying to start here is a conversation about manufacturing by people who actually do it. I always tell people, when you pick up the phone to this program, you're not talking to some yahoo from the Chamber of Commerce, right, or from the manufacturers group or in town. That, my opinion is those groups they exist as a networking group, just for everybody to get together, and that's fine, okay? But as far as saving jobs or economic development, not going to happen, right? So I would like to be just one arm of that with your help, okay? So that was the purpose of Working Hands Radio. So I'm going to check the comments one more time, make sure I'm not missing anything. I make $36 on an assembly line. UAW or be a slave, right to work. Well, that's pretty good, $36 an hour. Yep, I finally broke $50,000 salary this year, best year I ever had. $45,000 a year, an hour is $90,000 a year. That sounds like a decent wage anywhere but California. Let's see. Well, I don't know who's telling me they're making 40. Okay. Why do journeyman die makers get paid so little? I have friends at big 3 automotive companies, and they make $45 an hour. That's just fine. $45 an hour, you're doing well. Lucky to get 20 plus an hour out in Oregon. I would agree with you in Pennsylvania, for sure. Go to meeting is an option to hear callers, no video. I'm not doing any more software stuff. This is the way to go, live on YouTube. Thanks for the suggestion. $20, don't laugh. Seriously. You'd be surprised what people get paid. A decent wage, $45 an hour to me is a decent wage. I agree, Terry. See, Chris broke $50,000 this year, best year I ever had, and I make $36 an hour. Those are good wages. I'm telling you what, those are not Erie, Pennsylvania wages. They're not. And congratulations for you guys that are doing that well. Send me a resume, please. Other than that, this Tuesday night, I just want to give you a quick heads up. Back to what happens when a town gets kind of beat up with their manufacturing. My guest this week is a guy that used to work at GE. He's a really smart guy. He was in their kind of in their procurement and scheduling, kind of management, right? And when you work for management at GE, they beat the hell out of you. They really do. I know people that have done it. And I'm not meaning management on the floor. Once you move in the front office, they pay you really well, but it's 7 days a week, right? So Tom Kennedy is a downtown entrepreneur here in Erie. He's not even from Erie, but for whatever reason, he became bullish on Erie, and when he started to get into real estate, and I made a mistake. I downloaded that on a thumb drive and put it on the software, and then took the thumb drive off and fired up the software, not realizing they had to work together. So my mistake. So Tom Kennedy is a local entrepreneur here in Erie. He started off with the Palace Hardware building that he bought. It was built in 1914, and then the building 2 blocks up the street, I think, became available like 6 months later, and he bought that one. And everybody's like, "Who's Tom Kennedy?" Well, he's an extremely good leader. He's from manufacturing, bullish on Erie, Pennsylvania, blue-collar town. He could have probably invested his money in any place, and I think he does. I think he's got a lot of things going on in Cleveland, too. But he owns those 2 buildings and a hotel he just built on our bayfront. So he's a very successful, upbeat guy. So he'll be my guest host. He may end up chatting a lot with you guys. He's from the ground up, self-made guy. So other than that, I think I made a few mistakes tonight. I'm glad I did it here tonight first before we go live on Tuesday night. So I hope you can join me Tuesday night right here on YouTube. I usually broadcast this stuff on Facebook, but I decided YouTube, I think my motto or what I've discovered is Facebook users don't have an issue with YouTube, but I think some people on YouTube have a little issue with Facebook, and that's okay. So let's see how it goes on YouTube Tuesday night. So I'm Phil Kerner, the Tool or Die Guy, and it was my pleasure to hang out with you guys tonight. Come on, I need you guys to be on there Tuesday night. Chime in, listen in, and best of all, please call in. Really would appreciate it. All right, so have a great Sunday night, and have a good day at work tomorrow. Enjoy that $45 an hour. That's an awesome job. We'll see you next time.